Chosen one, why does your soul feel restless tonight? Why have you been waking at 3:17 a.m., heart pounding, sensing something's coming but not knowing what? Why does the air itself feel different? Listen to me carefully. Don't breathe too easy. Heaven just sounded an alarm. An unusual emergency is approaching, one unlike anything you've ever known, anything your grandparents survived, anything history has recorded. And God whispered your name, specifically, personally, urgently. It's invisible, silent, creeping through the very air you're breathing right now, a spiritual fog so dangerous that even the angels are holding their breath. And God says, only those prepared, only those who hear his voice above the noise will survive what's coming. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. YouTube's algorithm didn't bring you here. Heaven intercepted your scroll because you are marked, chosen, set apart for this hour. That restlessness in your chest, that's your spirit recognizing a divine download about to change everything. Here's what broke my heart as God revealed this to me. 99% of believers, even faithful churchgoers, even those who've served for decades, will be caught completely off guard. They're spiritually asleep. But you're awake. You're listening. You're here. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes I will reveal why God told you to mask up your spirit, why silence might just save your soul, and why the next 72 hours will determine whether you stand or fall in this unprecedented spiritual battle. The fog is already moving. Animals sense it. Children feel it. Your own spirit is confirming it right now, isn't it? Before I go deeper into this divine warning, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But right now, if you feel this tugging in your spirit, if something inside you is confirming that this message found you for a reason, type, "I'm awake" in the comments right now. Let heaven record your obedience. Let the angels witness that you heard the alarm, because what I'm about to reveal next will either save your spiritual life, or you'll scroll away and miss the most important warning God has ever given his chosen ones. The emergency isn't coming tomorrow. It's here. The fog is moving. And your survival depends on what you do in the next 60 minutes. Are you ready to hear what God is saying? Are you prepared for the truth that will shake you to your core? Don't breathe easy, chosen one. The spiritual storm of your lifetime has just begun. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air itself recoil from your presence? Have you noticed how your own family members seem to look right through you, as if you've become invisible in your own home? Have you wondered why the very atmosphere around you feels charged with an electricity that makes your skin crawl and your spirit tremble? Dear chosen one, what you're sensing isn't your imagination growing wild with age. It's your spirit detecting something that 99% of the world cannot see, cannot feel, cannot comprehend. You're picking up the advanced signals of a spiritual plague that's about to sweep across this nation like nothing we've witnessed in our lifetime. You've lived through the Great Depression. You've survived world wars. You've weathered economic crashes, family betrayals, and losses that would have broken lesser souls. But I need you to understand something that will shake you to your very core. This emergency is different. This storm doesn't attack your bank account first. It doesn't strike your body initially. It hunts your soul. The ancient prophet Moses knew this terror. In Exodus chapter 10, when God unleashed the 9th plague upon Egypt, Scripture tells us there was darkness which may be felt. Not just the absence of light, but a living, breathing darkness so thick it pressed against human flesh. Pharaoh's people couldn't see each other. They couldn't move from their places for 3 days. But here's what should terrify you. The children of Israel had light in their dwellings. God is preparing the same distinction today. There will be those who walk in supernatural protection and those who are consumed by the fog. This spiritual fog, this invisible plague, is already moving across America. It's seeping through the cracks in our society, flowing like poison gas through the airways we breathe, contaminating conversations, infiltrating thoughts, and targeting specifically those whose spirits are awake. The Apostle John saw this very moment in Revelation chapter 9. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened. You see, beloved, this isn't coming from Washington, D.C. This isn't originating from some foreign enemy or domestic terrorist. This plague is ascending from the very depths of hell itself, designed with surgical precision to attack one specific group of people, those who carry the light of God in their hearts. Why you? Why now? Because after 8 decades on this earth, after all the prayers you've prayed, all the tears you've shed, all the battles you've fought in secret, your spirit has developed a frequency that pierces through the veil between heaven and earth. You've become a spiritual antenna, and that makes you both powerful and vulnerable. The enemy knows something about your generation that you've forgotten about yourselves. You carry the prayers of your parents who lived through the Depression. You hold the faith of grandparents who built this nation on biblical principles. You've witnessed America when it still acknowledged God, when children prayed in schools, when families stayed together through hardship. You are living repositories of a faith that modern America is desperately trying to erase. And that terrifies the kingdom of darkness. This fog attacks through 2 primary entry points, your breath and your words. Every casual conversation becomes a potential portal. Every unguarded moment of breathing becomes an invitation for spiritual contamination. Think about how many times in recent months you felt suddenly drained after talking to certain people. How many times you've walked away from conversations feeling spiritually depleted, as if something had been siphoned from your very soul. That wasn't coincidence. That was reconnaissance. The enemy has been mapping your spiritual territory, identifying your vulnerabilities, preparing for this moment when the fog would be released in full force. But here's what breaks my heart as I speak these words to you tonight. Most of your own family members won't understand what's happening to you. They'll attribute your warnings to old age, to paranoia, to loneliness affecting your judgment. They'll pat your hand condescendingly and suggest you're watching too much news, reading too much into things, letting your imagination run wild. But you know better, don't you? You've felt the shift. You've sensed the change in the atmosphere. You've noticed how prayer feels different lately, how worship seems more urgent, how your spirit keeps whispering warnings that your mind struggles to interpret. Jesus himself warned us in Matthew chapter 24, "As the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." In Noah's time, the earth was filled with violence and corruption, but the people went about their daily routines, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, completely oblivious to the judgment approaching until the flood came and swept them all away. Today, while America parties and protests, while politicians argue and entertainers distract, while even the church sleeps in comfortable complacency, you feel the rain beginning to fall. Your spirit is detecting the first drops of a spiritual deluge that will separate the wheat from the chaff, the sheep from the goats, the truly chosen from the merely religious. This fog will bypass the spiritually dead. It will flow right past those whose hearts have grown cold toward God, those who've embraced the darkness so completely that they're invisible to spiritual attack. But you who still pray, you who still believe, you who still cry out to God in the midnight hours, you are the primary target. If you've ever felt that heaviness in the air, that unease, that something isn't right, that sense that invisible forces are moving around you, lift your hand right now, even if you're alone in your living room. You're not losing your mind. You're not paranoid. You're not crazy. You're discerning. You're picking up spiritual frequencies that others can't detect. The question that will determine your survival isn't whether this fog is real. The question is, Will you obey God's instructions for protection before it's too late? Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to cut deep into your heart. That mask God is calling you to wear, it's not about fabric covering your face. It's about something far more sacred, far more dangerous than you've ever imagined. This is about covering your words, covering your breath, covering your very spirit from an invasion that's already begun. You see, for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've learned that speaking up means standing up, that your voice matters, that silence equals surrender. But what if I told you that everything the world taught you about the power of words, everything you believed about speaking your mind, what if all of that was setting you up for spiritual destruction in this final hour? James chapter 3, verse the 6th of December. Layers with thunderous authority, the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. Think about that word, fire. Not warmth, not light. Fire that burns, destroys, consumes everything in its path. Your tongue, precious saint, has been a weapon of mass destruction, and you didn't even know it. How many family dinners have you ruined with one careless comment? How many relationships have you severed with words you can never take back? How many nights have you laid in bed, replaying that conversation with your daughter, wishing you could swallow those angry words that drove her away for 3 years? The enemy has been using your mouth as his megaphone for decades, and right now, he's preparing for his final assault. But God is calling you to something revolutionary, something that will save not just your soul, but your legacy. He's calling you to the mask of obedience. When David cried out in Psalm 141:3, "Set a guard over my mouth, Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips," he wasn't being poetic. He was begging for survival. Because David understood something that most believers never grasp: your mouth is a portal. Every word you speak opens a door. Every careless phrase creates a crack. And in this spiritual fog that's approaching, every crack becomes a highway for hell to invade your life. Picture this. You're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner next month. Your grandson walks in with purple hair and a nose ring. Your first instinct? Let him have it. Tell him what you really think. After all, you've earned the right to speak your mind, haven't you? You've lived long enough, sacrificed enough, seen enough to have an opinion. But what if that moment, that split second, when you choose words over wisdom, becomes the moment the spiritual fog slips through? What if your need to be right becomes the reason your family falls apart? What if your refusal to wear the mask of silence becomes the crack that destroys everything you've spent a lifetime building? Every careless word can be a crack where darkness seeps in. Here's what's going to shock you to your core. Silence is not weakness. It's the loudest weapon heaven gives you. Your stillness confuses hell itself. Think about Jesus before Pilate, the man who spoke worlds into existence, standing silent. The Word made flesh, choosing not to speak. Why? Because he understood something that will revolutionize your spiritual warfare. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Your silence becomes a fortress that the enemy cannot penetrate. Your refusal to defend yourself becomes a shield that deflects every arrow of accusation. Your decision to bite your tongue becomes the very thing that saves your soul from the approaching storm. But this goes deeper than family arguments and holiday tensions. This spiritual fog that's coming, it feeds on frequency. It rides on sound waves. It travels through the very words you speak. And it's targeting you specifically because you carry light in this dark world. While the spiritually dead will walk through this storm untouched because darkness doesn't attack darkness, you, the awakened one, become a target the moment you open your mouth. Your words carry power. Your voice carries authority. And the enemy knows that if he can corrupt your speech, he can corrupt your spirit. Remember Zechariah in Luke chapter 1. When the angel told him about John the Baptist, Zechariah doubted. He questioned. He spoke when he should have stayed silent. And what happened? God struck him mute for 9 months. Not as punishment, as protection. because sometimes God has to silence us to save us. The mask you're being called to wear isn't cloth, it's covenant. It's a sacred agreement between you and the Almighty that your words will serve His purposes, not your pride. That your breath will carry His presence, not your pain. That your voice will speak life, or it will speak nothing at all. But why would God command silence now, of all times? Why? When the world seems to be spinning out of control, when evil appears to be winning, when someone needs to speak up for righteousness, why is heaven telling you to be quiet? Because, dear saint, you're about to discover that the battle you thought was about speaking truth is actually about surviving deception. And what's coming next will prove that your greatest act of faith might just be your decision to say absolutely nothing at all. Chosen one, I need to ask you something that might cut deep into your soul tonight. How many evenings have you sat in your empty living room, the television flickering images you're not really watching, wondering if anyone remembers you're still here? How many nights have you pulled that worn Bible from your nightstand, opened it to the same familiar pages, and whispered prayers into the darkness that seemed to bounce off the ceiling like echoes in a cave? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That hollow ache that settles in your chest when the phone doesn't ring, when your children are too busy with their own lives to visit, when the church you served faithfully for 30 years suddenly feels cold and distant, when even God Himself seems to have gone silent. Maybe it was last Tuesday night. You were sitting at that kitchen table where you've shared thousands of meals, now set for one. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, and you found yourself whispering, God, do you even see me anymore? Have I become invisible to everyone, even to you? Listen to me carefully, dear soul. What you've been calling abandonment, God calls preparation. What you've been calling loneliness, heaven calls incubation. What you've been calling silence, the Almighty calls sacred fortification. You weren't being forgotten. You were being forged. Think about Joseph for a moment. 17 years old, full of dreams and divine visions, thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Can you imagine that darkness? Can you feel the weight of that betrayal? For 13 years, he sat in slavery, then in prison, wondering if God had forgotten every promise whispered over his young life. 13 years of silence. 13 years of seeming abandonment. But God wasn't punishing Joseph in that pit. He was positioning him. Every day of darkness was building the character that would one day save nations. Every tear shed in solitude was preparing him to weep with compassion over Egypt's hungry children. Every moment of feeling forgotten was teaching him to remember the forgotten when power finally came. Your pit hasn't been punishment, chosen one. It's been preparation. David knew this emptiness too. The shepherd boy anointed to be king, running through caves like a hunted animal, while Saul sat on the throne that belonged to him. 1 Samuel tells us David spent years hiding in the wilderness of En-Gedi, in the strongholds of Ziph, sleeping on stone floors and drinking from muddy streams. Years of asking God, when will your promises come to pass? When will this exile end? But listen to what David discovered in those caves. Psalm 57, written in the cave of Adullam. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until the destroying storms pass by. David didn't find God's presence in the palace. He found it in the pit. He didn't hear God's voice in the applause of crowds. He heard it in the echo of his own prayers off cave walls. Your empty rooms aren't evidence of God's absence. They're sacred chambers where His presence is concentrated. Maybe you've wondered why your prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall back down. Why heaven feels locked when you need it most. Why other people seem to get their breakthroughs while you sit in the waiting room of faith, growing older, watching time slip away like sand through arthritic fingers. But what if I told you that every unanswered prayer was actually God saying, not yet, because what I'm preparing for you requires more strength than you currently possess? What if every tear you've cried into that pillow, yes, I know about those tears. What if everyone was being collected in heaven's bottles, stored up as evidence of your faithfulness in the fire? Psalm 56:8 declares, "You have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" God has been keeping meticulous records of your suffering, not because he enjoys your pain, but because he's building a case for your promotion. The enemy whispers that your isolation means you're irrelevant, that your silence means you're forgotten, that your age means your time has passed. But God is saying the exact opposite. Your isolation has been protection from contamination. Your silence has been training for authority. Your years have been accumulating wisdom that this broken world desperately needs. I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see your current season. The test of stillness this season, where nothing seems to move, where prayers feel stagnant, where you feel suspended between what was and what's coming. This isn't God's neglect. This is God's strategy. Just as a surgeon requires complete stillness during the most delicate operations, God has required your stillness during the most critical work in your spirit. He's been performing surgery on generational curses. He's been rewiring neural pathways damaged by decades of disappointment. He's been installing new spiritual software that will operate at frequencies your younger self couldn't handle. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you are so close to breakthrough that hell has convinced you to quit just before dawn. You're like a woman in labor who decides to stop pushing just moments before the baby's birth. The pain of transition has become so intense that you've considered giving up on the very promise that's about to be delivered. Don't you dare stop now. That restlessness in your spirit, that's not emptiness, that's anticipation. That's your soul sensing that the fog is about to lift, the silence is about to break, the stillness is about to explode into divine movement. The spiritual fog approaching isn't coming to destroy you. It's coming to reveal you, to unveil what God has been building in secret, to demonstrate that when the storms rage and chaos erupts, you remain unshakable because you've learned to find your stability in silence. If you can receive this word, if something in your spirit is confirming that your season of hiddenness has been purposeful, type, "I receive the shield of silence" in the comments right now. Let heaven record that you understand. Let the angels witness that you're ready to step from the cave into your calling. But are you prepared for what happens when God decides the silence has served its purpose, and it's time for your voice to shake nations? You felt it, didn't you? That strange uneasiness in your backyard last Tuesday when the rabbits froze mid-hop, their eyes wide with terror, staring at something you couldn't see. You dismissed it as coincidence. But chosen one, creation itself is screaming a warning that most will never hear. Listen to what's happening right now across America. From the farmlands of Iowa to the suburbs of Queens, animals are acting different. Rabbits, those gentle creatures God designed as symbols of new life, are gathering in unusual numbers, their behavior erratic, restless. Dogs are howling at frequencies that pierce the night. Cats are hiding for days, refusing to come out even for their favorite treats. Creation knows what's coming before we do. Romans 8:22 declares, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time." Paul wasn't speaking metaphorically, dear one. He was revealing a cosmic truth that your grandmother's generation understood, but we've forgotten in our digital age. The earth itself is in labor pains. And what's about to be birthed will shake every foundation you thought was secure. You've been watching the signs without recognizing them. These aren't random events. These are divine alarm bells. The polar vortex that brought sub-zero temperatures to Texas in 2021. The unprecedented wildfires consuming entire towns in California. The floods in Kentucky that turned main streets into raging rivers overnight. But it goes deeper than weather patterns. Can you feel it in your own neighborhood? The way your adult children call less frequently. The way strangers avoid eye contact at the grocery store. The way Sunday morning church feels emptier, even when the pews are full. This isn't just social breakdown. This is spiritual collapse accelerating at breakneck speed. Your 401 Kelvin portfolio can't protect you from what's coming. Your Medicare supplement won't cover this emergency. Your home security system won't detect this invasion because it's not entering through your doors, it's seeping through the very air you breathe. Think about this shocking reality. In the past 3 years, how many times have you whispered to yourself, "Something just doesn't feel right"? How many mornings have you awakened with an unexplainable heaviness in your chest? How many times have you looked at the news and thought, "This can't be normal"? That's your spirit, the part of you that's connected to eternity, responding to frequencies the natural mind cannot process. You're picking up distress signals from creation itself. Isaiah 24:4 warned us, "The earth dries up and withers, the world languishes and withers, the heavens languish together with the earth." Notice it says the heavens languish with the earth. This isn't just environmental crisis, this is dimensional warfare spilling into our reality. Right now, as you're listening to my voice, there are forces moving in the spiritual realm that make Hurricane Katrina look like a gentle breeze. Principalities and powers that have been restrained for millennia are being given temporary permission to test every soul on this planet. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The same creation that's groaning in warning is also pregnant with breakthrough for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. You think those sleepless nights at 3 a.m. are insomnia? No. Chosen one, that's your spirit being awakened for intercession during the hour when the veil between dimensions is thinnest. You think that restlessness in your bones is arthritis? That's the Holy Spirit stirring you to arise from spiritual slumber. Creation isn't just warning you, it's recruiting you. The rabbits aren't just running from danger, they're running to safety. And if you're wise, if you're truly listening with your spiritual ears, you'll follow their instinct to find shelter before the storm breaks in full fury. But here's the question that should terrify every believer in America. What if this unusual emergency isn't just another trial to endure? What if it's the final examination, the ultimate test that separates the wheat from the chaff, the sheep from the goats, the truly chosen from the merely religious? Even the earth is whispering, "Chosen one, prepare." But what exactly are you preparing for? Stay with me, because the revelation is about to break open like thunder across the heavens, and what I'm about to reveal next will determine whether you stand firm or fall away in the hour of humanity's greatest testing. The signs are all around you. Creation is shouting. But are you listening with more than just your ears? Listen carefully, chosen one. What's coming isn't just a single moment of crisis. God has revealed to me that this spiritual emergency unfolds over 3 distinct days, 3 days that will separate the prepared from the unprepared, the obedient from the rebellious, the survivors from the casualties. These aren't ordinary days, they're prophetic markers, divine checkpoints where your faithfulness will be tested to its very core. And I need you to understand something that might shock you. How you respond in these 72 hours will determine not just your survival, but your spiritual destiny for the rest of your life. Day 1. The shift. On the first day, you'll feel it before you see it. The very air around you will shift, becoming heavy, weighted with an otherworldly presence. It's like the atmosphere itself is holding its breath, waiting for something catastrophic to unfold. You know that feeling when a thunderstorm is approaching, that electric tension in the air that makes your skin crawl and your spirit restless? Multiply that by 1,000. This is what Ecclesiastes 3:1 means when it says, "To everything there is a season, but this season carries the weight of eternity." Your breath will feel different. Each inhale will seem more precious, more intentional. Some of you watching this right now are already feeling it, aren't you? That strange heaviness in your chest, like you're breathing through invisible cotton. That's not anxiety, that's spiritual recognition. Your soul knows something's coming. The enemy wants you to dismiss this as imagination, as stress, as getting older. But I'm telling you right now, guard your breath. Every breath on day 1 becomes sacred, deliberate, protected. The psalmist wrote in Psalm 150:6, Let everything that hath breath praise the Lord. On this day, your very breathing becomes an act of worship and warfare. Animals will sense it first. Your dog might act strangely, birds might fall silent, even your goldfish might seem agitated. Why? Because creation itself recognizes when spiritual realms collide with the natural world. Romans 8:22 tells us the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Day 1 is when that groaning becomes audible to those with spiritual ears. But here's what terrifies me about day 1. Most people will ignore the signs. They'll explain away the heaviness, medicate the restlessness, dismiss the warnings their own bodies are screaming. Don't be most people. Day 2, the chaos. Then comes day 2. And beloved, if day 1 tested your awareness, day 2 will test your self-control. This is when the spiritual fog unleashes its most devastating weapon, confusion through voices. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion, everyone has a solution, everyone knows what's really happening. The phone won't stop ringing, social media explodes with theories, neighbors argue in the streets. Even your own family members turn against each other with a ferocity that seems to come from nowhere. But here's the terrifying truth. Not every voice speaking is human. 1 John 4:1 warns us, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God." On day 2, the spiritual realm becomes so thin that demonic voices blend seamlessly with human ones, stirring division, fear, and chaos. You'll feel the overwhelming urge to speak, to defend, to explain, to argue back. Your mouth will itch to respond to every accusation, every misunderstanding, every lie being spread. But this is exactly what the enemy is counting on. Your silence is your fortress, not your intelligence, not your eloquence, not your ability to defend yourself. Your silence. Jesus himself understood this principle. When he stood before Pilate, Matthew 27:14 tells us, he answered him to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. The Son of God, who could have spoken worlds into existence, chose silence as his weapon. Every word you speak on day 2 becomes ammunition for the enemy. Every defense becomes an offense against your own spirit. Every argument becomes a crack in your spiritual armor. The fog feeds on your words, grows stronger with your explanations, multiplies through your justifications. This is why God commands you to be silent. Not because he's trying to control you, but because he's trying to save you. Day 3. The purification. By day 3, the isolation will feel like it's crushing your chest. The silence that protected you will now seem like a prison. You'll feel forgotten, abandoned, cut off from everyone and everything that once brought you comfort. This is when most chosen ones break. This is when faith becomes doubt, when trust becomes terror, when obedience becomes rebellion. The enemy whispers his cruelest lie on day 3. God has abandoned you. But listen to me with every fiber of your being. This isn't punishment, it's purification. Think about gold being refined. The fire doesn't destroy the gold, it burns away everything that isn't gold. The heat isn't torture, it's transformation. 1 Peter 1:7 declares that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory. Day 3 is your refiner's fire. Every relationship that falls away was preventing your promotion. Every comfort that stripped away was keeping you dependent on earth instead of heaven. Every voice that goes silent was drowning out the voice of God. In this isolation, you'll hear him clearly for the first time in years, maybe decades. The same God who met Moses in the wilderness, who visited Elijah in the cave, who spoke to John on Patmos, that God is waiting for you in the silence of day 3. This is where breakthrough begins. Not in the noise, not in the chaos, not in the explanations, but in the sacred solitude where your soul finally stops running and starts listening. But here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. Day 3 isn't the end. It's the beginning. Beyond this trial lies something so magnificent, so transformative, so life-altering, that every moment of pain will pale in comparison to the glory that's about to be revealed. The question is, will you trust the process enough to reach the other side? Listen to me, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about yourself for the last 70, 80, maybe 90 years of your life. You've spent decades wondering why you felt different, why family gatherings left you feeling like a stranger at your own table, why your co-workers thought you were too sensitive, why your own children sometimes looked at you like you spoke a foreign language, why you've carried this weight in your chest that nobody else seemed to understand. You thought something was wrong with you. You blamed yourself for being the odd one out. You apologized for caring too much, feeling too deeply, seeing things others couldn't see. But what if I told you that everything they called your weakness was actually your greatest strength? The fog doesn't chase the dead. It chases the awake. You're targeted because you shine. Do you understand what this means? While others sleep through their spiritual lives, going through the motions of faith without truly connecting to the divine, you've been awake. Your spirit has been alive, sensitive, tuned to frequencies others can't even detect. That's why you feel the pull toward this message right now. That's why your soul recognized the alarm before your mind could process it. In Matthew 24:24, Jesus warned us, "For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect, even the elect, even the chosen ones." But notice what this verse reveals: there are elect, there are chosen ones. And if you're feeling that stirring in your spirit right now, if every word I'm speaking is hitting like lightning in your chest, you're one of them. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it's proof you are marked. Think about this. When Saul was on the road to Damascus, why did Jesus appear to him specifically? When God chose Moses to deliver Israel, why a stuttering shepherd? When heaven selected Mary to birth the Messiah, why a teenage girl from nowhere, Nazareth? Because God doesn't choose the qualified, He qualifies the chosen. And He marks them with something the world doesn't understand: spiritual sensitivity. You've been rejected by people who couldn't handle your intensity, betrayed by those who felt exposed by your ability to see through facades, misunderstood by family members who called you too much when you were actually just enough for God's purposes. Every rejection wasn't proof of your inadequacy, it was confirmation of your calling. They thought you were strange, they thought you were weak, but heaven calls you chosen. Remember when Jesus said in John 15:19, "If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, chosen you out of the world." That's why you've never felt like you belonged here. That's why earthly success never satisfied you. That's why at 85 years old, you still feel like there's something more you're supposed to do. The spiritual fog approaching isn't random weather. It's a targeted assault on the awakened. While spiritually dead people walk through life unaffected, untouchable because there's nothing alive in them to attack, you're in the crosshairs because your light threatens the darkness, your prayers move mountains, your faith activates miracles, your very presence shifts atmospheres. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been hiding that light under a bushel of shame, dimming your spiritual brightness because the world told you to blend in, apologizing for the very gifts that make hell tremble and heaven rejoice. You've been carrying anointing oil in cracked vessels, thinking the cracks made you worthless when they actually made you precious. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your age disqualifies you, that your past mistakes cancel your calling, that your broken places make you unusable. But God is saying today, I use cracked pots to hold my greatest treasures. Your cracks aren't flaws, they're where the light gets in and the glory leaks out. This is why the spiritual emergency is here now. This is why heaven is sounding the alarm in this generation. Because we have an entire population of chosen ones who've been convinced they're too old, too broken, too ordinary to matter. But when God's elect finally wake up to who they are, when they stop apologizing for their sensitivity and start weaponizing it for the kingdom, hell itself will shake. You think you're retired from purpose? God says you're just getting started. You think your influence is over? Heaven says your greatest impact is ahead. You think you missed your moment? The Almighty says this is your moment. Every tear you've cried in secret has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark has been recorded in eternal archives. Every moment you felt forgotten has been preparation for this revelation. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are not ordinary. You are chosen. You are marked. You are protected. The fog may be coming, but it cannot touch what belongs to God. The enemy may rage, but greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The storm may roar, but you have been equipped with spiritual armor that no weapon formed against you can penetrate. Right now, I need you to do something that will activate every spiritual defense heaven has placed around your life. I need you to declare war on every lie that's tried to diminish you. Stand up wherever you are. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I don't care if your knees hurt. I don't care if people are watching. Stand in your spirit and declare it with me. I am chosen. I am marked. I am protected. The fog may come, but it cannot have me. I am awake. I am alive. I am anointed. And I refuse to hide my light any longer. Say it until hell backs down and heaven takes notice. Because, chosen one, the emergency isn't coming to destroy you, it's coming to reveal you. But the question that will determine everything is this. Now that you know who you really are, what are you going to do about it? Chosen one, you've heard the alarm. You've seen the fog approaching. Now comes the moment that will determine whether you survive this spiritual storm or become another casualty of the enemy's assault on God's people. This isn't a drill. This isn't symbolic language. This is heaven's battle plan for the next 72 hours, and your obedience could mean the difference between spiritual life and death, not just for you, but for your children, your grandchildren, and everyone whose destiny is connected to your faithfulness. Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to give you are not suggestions, they are divine commands from the throne room of heaven itself. First, your spiritual mask is your guarded tongue. Proverbs 18:21 declares, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Right now, as this fog spreads, your words have become weapons either for your protection or your destruction. Every careless phrase, every complaint, every word spoken in fear becomes a portal for the enemy to enter your spiritual atmosphere. God is commanding you to guard your tongue like you would guard your life savings, because that's exactly what it is, your spiritual inheritance. When you feel the urge to speak in anger, when you want to defend yourself, when you're tempted to gossip or complain, that's the fog trying to use your own mouth against you. Your silence isn't weakness, dear one. It's warfare. It's you denying the enemy access to your soul through the gateway of your speech. James 1:19 reminds us to be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. In these next critical hours, your restraint becomes your shield. Second, your spiritual home is your safe prayer space. Isaiah 26:20 says, "Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment until the indignation is past." God is calling you to spiritual lockdown, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Your home, your prayer closet, that quiet corner where you meet with Jesus, that's your bunker in this spiritual war. When you feel the heaviness in the air, when that unexplained anxiety tries to grip your heart, retreat to your sacred space. Close the door. Get on your knees. Let the presence of God become your atmosphere, instead of the toxic fog the enemy is releasing. This isn't about hiding from the world. This is about positioning yourself in the secret place where heaven's power flows strongest. Psalm 91:1 promises, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." Third, your spiritual stillness is power through silence. Exodus 14:14 declares, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." Do you understand what that means? While the world panics, while confusion spreads like wildfire, while even good people make foolish decisions in fear, you will be still. You will be silent. You will let God fight your battles. This stillness isn't passivity. It's the most powerful force in the universe, surrendered trust in an all-powerful God. When Moses held his staff over the Red Sea, he didn't scream or struggle. He stood still and watched God part the waters. When Jehoshaphat faced impossible odds, 2 Chronicles 20:17 records God's command. You will not need to fight in this battle. Position yourselves, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Your stillness in this storm will confuse the enemy. Your peace in chaos will become a beacon of hope for others. Your silence will speak louder than all the noise around you. But here's what I need you to do right now tonight, before you sleep, and I mean this literally. Place your hand on your mouth, feel the warmth of your breath against your palm, and whisper these words: Lord, guard my words. Make my mouth a fountain of life, not death. Let my silence be my shield, and my speech be your voice. That prayer, spoken with your hand as a physical reminder, becomes your lifeline. It activates heaven's protection over your words, your breath, your very spirit. Now listen to me, dear saint. This emergency isn't just about your survival. The fog that's coming isn't just hunting individual souls, it's coming for entire family lines. It's targeting generational blessings. It's trying to cut off the spiritual inheritance you're supposed to pass down to your children and grandchildren. Your 6-year-old granddaughter, who barely speaks to you, she needs the protection that flows through your obedience. Your adult son who walked away from faith, he's covered by the spiritual hedge you maintain through your silence and prayer. Your great-grandchildren who haven't been born yet, their destiny depends on whether you stand strong in this hour. Don't breathe carelessly, don't speak recklessly. Mask up your spirit, because your survival isn't just for you, it's for the light you carry to the next generation. You are the spiritual firewall between the enemy's assault and your family's future. Romans 8:19 says, For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. The whole earth is waiting for you to remember who you are, to step into your authority, to take your position as a guardian of the faith. If this word has lit a fire in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, forward it, send it to that family member who needs to hear it. Someone else's survival may depend on your obedience to spread this warning. Hit that subscribe button not just to a channel, but to an army of chosen ones who refuse to go quietly into spiritual darkness. Ring that notification bell because heaven is speaking, and you need to hear every word. The fog is moving. The battle has begun. But you, chosen one, you were born for such a time as this. Mask up. Stand strong. Let your silence shake hell and your obedience move heaven. The next generation is counting on you. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about the battle raging around you right now. This fog I've been warning you about. It's not what you think. You see, most people hear spiritual fog and imagine some mystical mist floating through the air. But this fog is far more insidious, far more personal, far more devastating than anything your natural eyes could ever see. This fog is deception itself. It's the lies that have been seeping into your living room through the television screen. It's the confusion that's torn apart families at Thanksgiving dinner. It's the betrayal you felt when voices you trusted for decades suddenly turned against everything you believed. It's the suffocating feeling that truth itself has become negotiable in a world gone mad. The fog deceives, the fog distracts, the fog divides. Listen to me carefully. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 11 gives us a chilling prophecy. For this reason God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie. Did you catch that? God himself allows deception to fall like a thick blanket over those who have rejected his truth. But here's what breaks my heart as I speak to you tonight. Some of you are sitting there remembering the exact moment you felt this fog creep into your own life. Maybe it was when your own children started believing things that made no sense. Maybe it was when your church, the church you served faithfully for 40 years, began preaching messages that felt foreign to your spirit. Maybe it was when friends you'd known since high school started repeating talking points that sounded like they came from another planet. You thought you were losing your mind. You thought you were getting old and couldn't keep up with the times. You thought maybe you were the one who was wrong. But chosen one, you weren't losing your mind. You were maintaining it. While others were breathing in the fog of confusion, your spirit was holding its breath, sensing something toxic in the atmosphere. The fog deceives, the fog distracts, the fog divides. Think about the last 5 years of your life. How many relationships have been strained? How many family gatherings have turned into battlefields? How many times have you sat in your favorite chair, watching the news, feeling like you're living in a completely different country than the one you grew up in? That wasn't progress. That wasn't social evolution. That was the fog, rolling in like a tsunami of spiritual confusion, designed specifically to isolate you, to make you question your own discernment, to convince you that the wisdom you've gained through 7, 8, 9 decades of walking with God somehow doesn't matter anymore. But here's the shocking truth the enemy doesn't want you to discover. Your confusion isn't weakness, it's confirmation. Your inability to make sense of the madness around you isn't evidence that you're behind the times, it's evidence that you're ahead of the curve. You see, the fog doesn't affect everyone the same way. Isaiah 5:20 warns us, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." The people breathing in this fog, they don't even know they're suffocating. They think the poison is fresh air. But you've been choking on it, because your spirit recognizes contamination when it encounters it. Some of you trusted voices that later betrayed you, pastors who suddenly started preaching politics instead of Jesus, news anchors who used to tell the truth until they didn't, politicians who promised to protect your values until they sold them to the highest bidder, family members who used to respect your wisdom until they started treating you like you were senile for believing what you've always believed. That wasn't confusion, dear one. That was the fog trying to blind you. The fog deceives. The fog distracts. The fog divides. And here's the most heartbreaking part. You started to doubt yourself. You began to wonder if maybe you were the problem. Maybe you were too set in your ways. Maybe you needed to be more open-minded. Maybe the world really had passed you by. But what if I told you that everything you've been feeling, that sense of being a stranger in your own country, that feeling of watching the world go insane while you stayed sane, what if all of that was actually your spiritual immune system working perfectly? You haven't been left behind, chosen one. You've been left standing. While others fell for the lies, you remained upright. While others breathed in the poison, you held your breath. While others lost their way in the fog, you kept your bearings. But here's the urgent reality we must face together. The fog is thickening. Every day it gets denser. Every week it spreads further. Every month, more people you love disappear into its deceptive embrace. And if you don't understand how to navigate through it, if you don't learn the secret of spiritual sight in spiritual darkness, you risk losing everything that matters to you. The fog doesn't just blind individuals, it blinds institutions. It blinds governments, it blinds churches, it blinds families. It's a supernatural delusion so powerful that Jesus himself warned in Matthew 24:24 that if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived. Even the elect, even the chosen ones, even you. That should terrify you and comfort you at the same time. Terrify you because the deception is that strong. Comfort you because Jesus said if it were possible, meaning it's not possible for you to be completely deceived if you know the secret I'm about to share. But if the fog blinds the world, if it confuses the wise and deceives the elect, how can the chosen see clearly in this supernatural darkness? How do you navigate when your own family doesn't recognize you anymore? How do you stand firm when everything around you is shifting like quicksand? How do you breathe clean air when the very atmosphere seems poisoned with lies? I'll show you the secret. But first, you need to understand exactly why this fog has been sent and why it's targeting you specifically. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to discover, chosen one. While this spiritual fog spreads across America, blinding millions, clouding judgment, and causing even faithful believers to stumble in confusion, you possess something extraordinary. Something that makes hell itself tremble when you walk into a room. You carry spiritual sight. Listen to me carefully. That feeling you've had your entire life, that you see things others miss, that you sense danger before it arrives, that you know when someone's lying before they finish their sentence, that's not paranoia. That's not overthinking. That's divine radar installed in your spirit by the Almighty Himself. The Apostle Paul revealed this mystery in 1 Corinthians 2:15. The spiritual man discerns all things, not some things, not obvious things, all things. You've been walking around with supernatural X-ray vision, and most of the time, you've been apologizing for it. Stop apologizing. Start recognizing. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? Remember last month when you felt uneasy about that phone call from your daughter, and 3 days later she called in tears with devastating news? Remember when you couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong at church, and later discovered the financial scandal? Remember when you told your spouse, "Something's not right here," and they called you negative, dramatic, too sensitive? But you were right. You're always right. Because God gave you eyes that see beyond the veil. While ordinary people navigate by what they can touch, taste, and Google search, you're operating with intelligence downloaded directly from the throne room of heaven. That heaviness you feel in certain rooms, that spiritual atmosphere, that sudden urge to pray for someone, that's divine intercession. That voice warning you to stay silent during family dinner, that's the Holy Spirit protecting you from walking into a trap. Your sensitivity is not a burden, it's your radar in the storm. But here's what breaks my heart. How many times have you second-guessed that inner knowing? How many times have you ignored the warning signals because you didn't want to seem paranoid? How many times have you walked into situations your spirit was screaming to avoid because you thought you were being foolish? Dear one, your spiritual sight is about to become your lifeline, because while this fog spreads, while confusion reigns, while even pastors and theologians are stumbling in spiritual darkness, your vision will cut through the deception like a sword through silk. The fog cannot blind what God has opened. It cannot confuse what heaven has clarified. It cannot silence what the Spirit has activated. Think about your grandmother for a moment. She knew things, didn't she? She'd look at your boyfriend in 1962 and say, "Something's not right about that boy," and you'd roll your eyes. But 6 months later, you discovered she was absolutely correct. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning with an urgent need to pray for your cousin in Vietnam, and later learn that was the exact moment he needed divine intervention. She had the sight, the gift, the knowing. That same spiritual DNA flows through your veins. That same heavenly frequency pulses in your spirit. But your generation has been taught to doubt it, medicate it, therapy it away. No more. In these coming days of spiritual fog, your discernment will save lives. Your ability to sense when conversations turn dangerous will protect your family. Your supernatural knowing of when to speak and when to stay silent will preserve your testimony. Your gift of seeing through facades will expose wolves in sheep's clothing before they can strike. But you must trust it. You must honor it. You must stop explaining it away. Last Tuesday, you felt uneasy about going to that gathering, didn't you? Something in your spirit said not today, but you went anyway because you didn't want to disappoint people. And what happened? Exactly what your spirit warned you about: drama, negativity, spiritual contamination that took you 3 days to shake off. Your spirit was protecting you. Your inner radar was functioning perfectly, but you overrode it with human reasoning. The fog is counting on you to keep doing that. To keep doubting. To keep second-guessing. To keep apologizing for seeing what others cannot see. I'm telling you right now that season is over. Your spiritual vision is not a suggestion from heaven. It's a commandment. It's an assignment. It's your divine inheritance as a chosen one. When Elisha's servant couldn't see the angelic army surrounding them, Elisha prayed, "Lord, open his eyes that he may see." And suddenly the servant saw horses and chariots of fire filling the mountains. The protection was always there. The army was always present. He just needed his spiritual eyes opened. Your eyes are already open. They've been open for decades. You've been seeing the chariots of fire, sensing the angelic protection, feeling the spiritual winds shift. The question is, will you finally trust what you see? Because in the next 48 hours, that vision will be tested like never before. People you love will ask you to ignore your spiritual radar. Circumstances will pressure you to override your inner knowing. The fog itself will whisper that you're imagining things, that you're being dramatic, that you should just go along to get along. If you've ever felt like you knew something was wrong before anyone else, if you've ever sensed spiritual danger in seemingly safe situations, if you've ever had that holy discomfort that saved you from disaster, type "I see" in the comments right now. That vision is your inheritance. That knowing is your birthright. That sensitivity is your supernatural advantage. The fog may be approaching, but it cannot blind the eyes that heaven has opened. And what you're about to see next will confirm why God gave you this sight, and how it connects to the most dangerous deception ever unleashed on his people. Chosen one. They told you silence was weakness. They told you keeping quiet meant giving up. They told you that if you don't speak up, you don't matter. But what if I told you that everything they said was a lie straight from the pit of hell? Your silence isn't empty. Your silence is full. Your silence isn't weakness. Your silence is war. Listen to me carefully, dear soul. Inside your silence burns a hidden fire, a fire that hell cannot quench, cannot touch, cannot even comprehend. While the world screams and shouts and demands to be heard, you carry something far more dangerous. You carry the power of sacred quiet. Do you remember Elijah, this mighty prophet who called down fire from heaven, who outran chariots, who faced down 450 prophets of Baal and watched God consume them in supernatural flames? But when Elijah needed to hear from God most desperately, when his very life hung in the balance, where did he find the Almighty? 1 Kings 19:11-12 tells us the truth that will shake your understanding. And he said, "Go forth, and stand upon the mount before the Lord." And, behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice. A still small voice. Not thunder, not lightning, not the roar of armies or the crash of oceans. A whisper. And in that whisper Elijah found what all the noise had hidden, the very presence of God himself. Beloved, your silence is your sanctuary. Your quiet is your weapon. Every second you stay silent while others rage, the enemy loses ground. Every moment you choose restraint over reaction, hell trembles. Because your silence isn't passive, it's prophetic. You think you're just staying quiet. You're wrong. You're creating space for God to move. You're building a fortress of faith that no amount of noise can penetrate. You're wielding a sword that cuts through spiritual darkness more effectively than any argument ever could. But here's what's going to shock you, chosen one. Here's what the enemy desperately doesn't want you to understand. Your silence carries more weight in the spirit realm than the combined voices of 1,000 protesters. Your restraint roars louder than their rebellion. Your quiet whisper echoes through eternity, while their shouting fades into meaninglessness. Why? Because silence requires strength. Silence demands discipline. Silence proves you trust God more than you trust your own voice. Do you feel that fire burning in your chest right now? That's not frustration. That's not suppressed anger. That's the Holy Spirit confirming what your spirit already knows. You were built for this battle. You were designed for this moment when silence becomes your supernatural advantage. Think about Jesus before Pilate. Matthew 27:14 says, "And he answered him to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly." Jesus, the Word made flesh, the one who spoke worlds into existence, chose silence, not because he was weak, because his silence carried more power than any defense he could have offered. Your silence is your shout in the Spirit. Your restraint is your roar. But why, chosen one? Why does God trust you with this sacred silence? Why has he placed this fire inside your quiet heart? Because your light carries more weight than you realize. Because your life has been a training ground for this exact moment. Because every time you've bitten your tongue when you wanted to lash out, every time you've chosen peace over proving your point, every time you've walked away from an argument you could have won, you've been preparing for spiritual warfare that most people can't even see. The world looks at your silver hair and thinks you're powerless. But heaven sees those gray strands as a crown of wisdom earned through decades of learning when to speak and when to stay silent. They see your aged hands as weapons consecrated by years of folded prayer. They see your slower pace as the measured walk of someone who knows that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. Here's the truth that will set you free. The enemy fears your silence more than your words. He can twist your arguments, distort your explanations, use your very voice against you. But your silence? He has no weapon against holy quiet. He cannot corrupt what isn't spoken. He cannot manipulate what isn't said. This is why God warned you not to breathe easy. This is why he's calling you to mask up your spirit. Because in the coming spiritual fog, your silence will be your oxygen mask. Your quiet will be your shield. Your restraint will be your sword. Every moment you remain silent while chaos swirls around you, you're not retreating, you're advancing. You're not hiding, you're positioning yourself for victory. You're not giving up. You're storing up spiritual ammunition that will devastate the enemy's plans. But here's the question that's burning in your spirit right now. The question that's going to determine whether you survive what's coming. Will you trust the fire burning inside your silence, or will you let the world convince you that your voice doesn't matter unless it's loud? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why God chose you. Yes, you, to carry this sacred flame through the darkest hour America has ever known. Chosen one, I need you to stop everything right now and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because what you've been calling your greatest pain, what you've been calling your deepest shame, what you've been calling your unfortunate luck, none of it was random. You were marked before you walked, marked before you wept, marked before you wandered. Jeremiah 1-5 declares with thunderous authority, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I set you apart." Set apart, not just loved, not just chosen, set apart for something so profound that hell itself has been tracking you since your first breath. Think about your life for a moment. Really think. Why have you been through so much? Why did that marriage crumble when you gave everything? Why did your children turn away just when you needed them most? Why did the cancer come? Why did the bankruptcy hit? Why have you buried more dreams than you've seen fulfilled? The world told you it was bad luck. Your family said it was just life. Even you whispered in those 3 a.m. moments, "God, why me?" But what if I told you something that would change everything you thought you knew about your pain? You were marked before you walked, marked before you wept, marked before you wandered. Every betrayal that cut deep, that was the enemy recognizing the mark. Every illness that should have taken you out, that was hell trying to stop what heaven planted in you. Every night of loneliness when you cried yourself to sleep wondering if anyone cared, that was the isolation necessary to prepare you for what's coming. You see, beloved, the enemy doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. Satan doesn't deploy his best weapons against people who pose no threat. But you've been in his crosshairs since day one, because he saw what God embedded in your DNA before time began. Look at Job. The Bible says he was blameless and upright, yet everything was stripped away. His wealth, his children, his health, his wife's support. But Job 1-8 reveals the secret. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. God himself pointed Job out because Job carried something precious, a mark that could withstand any storm. You carry that same mark. That's why the attacks have been so vicious. That's why the pain has been so personal. That's why you've felt targeted, while others seem to glide through life untouched. But here's the mystery that will blow your mind. Every scar you carry is actually a seal of authenticity. Every tear you've shed has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every moment you wanted to quit, but didn't, that was the mark proving its power. You were marked before you walked, marked before you wept, marked before you wandered. Now listen carefully to what God revealed to me about this approaching fog, this spiritual emergency that's about to sweep across America like nothing we've ever seen. The fog bypasses the dead, but it hunts the living. It hunts you because you carry light. Do you understand what this means? While the spiritually dead, those disconnected from God's frequency, will walk through this crisis untouched, you are the target. Your light makes you visible to forces that want to extinguish what you carry. This isn't punishment, this is recognition. The same mark that has brought you pain all these years is the same mark that will protect you in what's coming, but only if you understand what you're dealing with. Think about the Passover in Egypt. The angel of death swept through the land, but it passed over every house marked with blood. The mark wasn't just decoration, it was protection. It was the difference between life and death. You've been marked with something far more powerful than lamb's blood. You've been marked with the blood of the Lamb, with the seal of the living God, with a frequency that resonates with heaven itself. But here's the urgent truth that's burning in my spirit right now. This mark makes you both target and sanctuary. Target to the enemy, sanctuary for others who will need what you carry. The fog is coming for you because it knows you're dangerous to darkness. Every lonely senior in a nursing home tonight wondering if their life mattered, they need to hear this. Every grandmother feeling forgotten by her grandchildren, she needs to understand her mark. Every grandfather who feels invisible in a youth-obsessed world, he needs to know he carries something irreplaceable. You were marked before you walked, marked before you wept, marked before you wandered. The question that will determine everything is this: will you finally embrace the mark you've been trying to hide? Will you stop seeing your scars as shame and start recognizing them as your spiritual credentials? Say it with me out loud right now. I am marked. I am chosen. I am not afraid. Because what's coming next will require every ounce of the authority that Mark carries. Chosen one, as we reach the end of this divine encounter together, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this: you were marked before you walked, marked before you wept, marked before you wandered. The spiritual fog approaching isn't coming to destroy you, it's coming to reveal who you've always been. Your scars aren't shame, they're your spiritual credentials. Your silence isn't weakness, it's your supernatural weapon. And your age isn't a limitation, it's your qualification for what God is about to do through you. But hear me clearly, beloved. You are not walking this treacherous path alone. The same God who marked you before time began is still working in your life right now, in this very moment. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you in the storm. Every tear you've cried, He's collected. Every prayer you've whispered, He's heard. Every step you take forward, He's already prepared the way. And beyond God's presence, you have something beautiful right here. A community of marked ones, scarred saints, chosen warriors who understand the weight you carry. Look at these comments. Feel these hearts connecting. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're family in the spirit, bound together by the same mark, called to stand together when the fog rolls in. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that you know you're marked, now that you understand the fog is coming, now that you realize your silence is your shield, What will you do when you wake up tomorrow morning? Will you continue living like you're ordinary, or will you finally embrace the extraordinary truth of who you are? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this sacred moment. Wherever you are, in your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen table, I want you to close your eyes and let me speak over your life as if I'm placing my hand on your shoulder. Almighty God, Father of all comfort, Ancient of Days, I come before you now carrying every precious soul who has heard this message tonight. Lord, they've felt different their whole lives. They've carried burdens they couldn't name, fought battles others couldn't see, survived storms that should have destroyed them, but you marked them, you chose them. You've been preparing them for this hour. Father, I pray over every senior saint watching this, breathe fresh strength into their weary bones. Let them know their best chapters aren't behind them but ahead of them. For every grandmother feeling forgotten, remind her that she carries wisdom this generation desperately needs. For every grandfather feeling invisible, show him that his prayers move mountains others can't even see. God, as this spiritual fog approaches, wrap them in your protective embrace. Give them supernatural discernment to recognize the enemy's tactics. Grant them the grace to remain silent when words would harm them, and the courage to speak when their voice can save others. Let their homes become sanctuaries, their hearts become fortresses, their very presence become a beacon of hope. Heal their bodies, Lord. Mend their broken relationships. Provide for every financial need. Surround them with people who recognize their worth. And above all, let them feel your presence so powerfully that fear has no place to land in their hearts. In the coming days, when the fog thickens and confusion spreads, be their clarity. When isolation presses in, be their comfort. When doubt whispers lies, let your truth thunder louder. They are marked, they are chosen, they are yours, and nothing in hell can touch what you have sealed. In the mighty name of Jesus, who bore our marks of suffering so we could wear crowns of glory, I release blessing, protection, and supernatural peace over every life. Amen. Now, chosen one, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has stirred your spirit. What did God speak to your heart tonight? What are you believing Him for in this season? Don't hold back, your testimony might be exactly what another marked one needs to hear to keep fighting. Type "I am marked" if you're ready to embrace your identity. Type "I'm not afraid" if you're prepared for what's coming. And if this message has touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs to remember they're not alone in feeling different, not alone in their struggles, not alone in their calling. Before you go, if this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of marked ones who gather here regularly to be equipped, encouraged, and empowered for kingdom living. We're building something sacred together, a community where the chosen find their tribe. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, you're exactly who God says